Hello everybody, this is Jasmina, and in this video I'm going to talk about the heaven-stem combinations. Now, I have talked about this before. The heaven-stem combinations are weaker than the branch combinations, but they do have an ability to combine away or transform other heaven stems. Now, the same thing is true of the sixth harmony in the branch combinations, but the heaven stems, even though this is a very complex thing, it is actually less complex than the sixth harmony. The sixth harmony adds one step to this whole thing I'm going to be talking about, but I thought it would be a little bit easier not to have that extra step put in. If you can understand this, you'll understand the sixth harmony much more easily. Now, I do expect people to have to watch this a couple times before they really understand it. It is very complex. And this is one reason why I don't put ads on my video, because I don't want you wasting your time to have to watch ads. I hope they don't put ads in if you try to replay the video. I don't know if this how it works. But I'm not getting a penny from any of those ads, so just skip them. Now, as I said, the six harmony branch combo can do this too. It's just a bit more complex, and that's why I'm doing this one first. Now, the transformation in the branches have similar rules, but they have some additional requirements. And so this is why with this, you will already have a good introduction, and that extra little step for the branch combinations will be much easier. Now, this is one thing that they don't tell you in general, because this is going to be a long video, because this is not an easy thing to explain, because you really have to look at the entire chart's makeup to determine whether or not a heaven stem combination can actually combine or if it can transform. And you can't just use simple rules, which is what you will usually see if you Google heaven stem combinations. That is, really should say, heaven stem potential combinations. There's no guarantee that it'll combine, and there's no, and combinations most people think are good, there's no guarantee it's good either. So this is unfortunately quite complicated. And I haven't figured out how to break it into smaller things, so this is just going to be a long video. Now, the simple table that you will see when you Google heaven stem combinations is not straightforward. It doesn't guarantee a combination will actually happen. You have to look at the whole chart. It's frustrating, but it does actually seem to actually be relevant, and you can't ignore it. You do have to look at the entire chart. So this is what you're going to see if you Google, what are the standard rules for the combinations? And it's here. You've seen it before. I've shown it before. Now, they also have, and usually have to go to the Chinese websites to find this, they have a standard removal stem. That is, if you have this combination, the stem that was supposed to be removed is the yang wood. If it's this one, it'll be the yin wood, and so forth. Now, this is also not something you should memorize, because it's not right. It depends on the chart. Which stem will be removed this is completely irrelevant. In honesty, it depends on your chart, which one might be removed. Now, an inexperienced Batsa practitioner would actually assume this is, if you have this combination, this is the one that'll be removed, and you'll have a replacement, and they may tell you what that means, but they may not be right. And I'm going to show you some of these transitions where they would be wrong if they use this table. Now, there's also some confusion, even in the Chinese language sites, about this very first combination. The rest of them are, at least they aren't contradicting themselves. This one Even in Chinese, it contradicts, the sentence contradicts itself. And I had my husband, who is, a Chinese native language person, he says it didn't make sense. What it says in the Chinese is that the earth controls the wood. Now, that is not true. Wood controls earth. So this is probably where the error is, because then afterward it says the wood wins. So it shouldn't be the wood that gets removed, it should be the yin earth. I mean, that's what, if the wood wins, that's what it means. Now, if we instead, and of course I'm translating this to English, if it's instead of controls is controlled by, that is, earth is controlled by wood, then wood wins makes total sense. And the difference in Chinese between controls and is controlled by is one single character. And if they just accidentally omitted a single character, then you've got a problem. Then you're going to get this contradictory statement. And we do know that wood controls earth. So this is very likely to be where the problem is. So I think if you were wanting to use this, this is an incorrect statement. But you wouldn't be using it anyway, because this is not the way to use this. So, and all it takes is one mistake. And I've seen this in a couple different Chinese websites that say the exact same thing, so they're copying from one another. But, you have to think a little logically, at least within a single sentence. Now, there is very little logic or logical consistency in the order of who dominates in that five combinations in the table I showed you just before this. So, I mean, maybe this is on average is the way it works. I don't know. But I don't use the chart at all. I don't use this standard removal stem as a way to make me figure out what I'm supposed to do if there's a combination. So you really have to look at your overall chart. It's a much better way to understand which element wins. And the element with the more support within the chart as a whole is the one who stays. The other one is the one that may go. Now, they can be equally strong, and if they're equally strong, neither leaves, and the combination doesn't occur. So this is not easy. This is really quite complicated. And I suspect most people will have to watch this several times to really understand. Now, a potential combination can leave both stems untouched. If both stems are very strong, nothing will change. It can also remove both stems if both stems are weak. Or it can remove one or both of the stems and create a replacement stem. Now that's called a transformation. Now the difference between being combined away and transformed is actually quite vague. But it amounts to more or less the same thing. So I wouldn't be too concerned about the difference in this. And actually in Chinese, the phrase combined away isn't used very often. It's either combined or transformed. And there's a combination without transformation, and there's a combination with transformation. That's the only thing that there seems to really be. There is no there is no term, and I had my husband try to find this for combined away. It just isn't used in Chinese, at least the websites we could find. Now, again, the entire chart needs to be examined to determine which of these above conditions are going to happen. So, and I'm going to give you examples, and there are examples, of course, in the places I am going to reference, but I make sure that my examples have to do with real dates and times, whereas the examples they give in a lot of these other websites are just simply examples where there is no such date that would correspond to the Batza chart they give you. But they're only trying to illustrate something. So that's okay. It just is not terribly useful. Now, what I'm presenting here is one of the medium strict schools. There are some stricter ones, there are some looser ones. So I'm kind of trying to go in the middle. I'm going to note when there are other schools that differ significantly in the rules that you use for combining these stems. And the basic rules that I'm going to talk about here, and if there's anything beyond that, I'm going to give a reference for it. But this is the website. I'm going to call it the ifeng.com website. And it is in Chinese, and you can translate it. It's easier to read in Chinese if you can read Chinese, but so I've forced my husband to read several passages here because they don't translate terribly well. So rule number 1, the 2 heaven stems must be in adjacent pillars. This is very, very common when you only have 2 stems or 2 pillars involved rather than 3, like for the directional combination or the 3 harmony combination. They have to be side by side. Very, very common. Now, this is an example. It's my chart. I actually have this, what you might think is a potential combination. But since we have the day pillar in between, this doesn't combine. I don't have this combination. Actually, my chart is pretty easy to read because I have actually no combinations. I have no, I have nothing that is really terribly problematic. So it's pretty easy to read. Second thing is, there must be a weak stem for a transformation to occur. If both stems are strong, no transformation occurs, and you don't even have a combination occurring because they're too strong to be combined away. So this is why you have to look at your chart and understand when you have these 2 stems that are interacting, which one is the weak one. That's the one that is potentially combined away. And if they're equally strong, it's either going to be they don't neither combined away or they both combined away. So you do have to really understand what's going on in your chart to know this. And also the month branch must be supportive of the combined element. Now there is a lot of disagreement here in the details. They both make this basic statement, but they disagree on exactly what is meant by supportive. And the schools, I've seen at least 3 schools that do this. Now, I don't know what school the ifeng.com website uses. Uh, Either I didn't read it well enough or he or she did not state it. Now, some schools do allow a broader description, some are stricter, of which months can support a given combined element. And many schools, but I can't say all do, also allow the month branch in the hidden stems to produce the combined element. So that gives some schools a little bit more possibility of having a combination being able to occur. Now, in this particular, the ifeng website, which I haven't really seen other places, is it does state that if you have a year and a month stem that are trying to combine, and the month pillar doesn't support the combined element, but the year pillar does, it is still a combination. Now, this isn't common, but I also don't see any statements to the contrary either. So this may be, let's say, a little more accepted than it appears to be. But I'm not going to guarantee that all schools believe this. So if we look at the ifeng website, This is what they say is the branches, the months that can support a particular stem. So if your combined element is wood, your month branch must be either the tiger, the rabbit, the rat, or the pig, because in these hidden stems, you have the wood or you have the water. So you have the wood, which is the same, or the water, which produces the wood. So that's how they do it. Now, if the stem that's being created is fire, it has to be the summer, the horse, and the snake. Well, I should not say the summer. It has to be the horse or the snake, which are the fire animals, or it can be the wood animals, the tiger and the rabbit, which produce fire. Now, the earth animals are kind of complex. We have the four, what are usually called graveyard animals. It could be called storage animals. They all have as their main chi an earth element. So that's why they're included. But the fire, the horse and the snake, which have their main chi to be a fire, they can also provide the same thing. So this one has a lot of possibilities. Also, the metal does too. We have the monkey and the rooster, whose main chi is metal. One is yang, one is yin. And then we also have all the earth elements because earth produces metal. And for a combined element of water, we can have the water animals of rat or pig, or we could have monkey or rooster, which is the metal that produces water. So this is very consistent, and that's one reason I chose this, because it's very, very consistent. Now, there are a lot of schools, and one example comes from a book, which I do have and I've read. It's not a terribly bad book. It's actually got some good information. But here and a lot of other schools also look at what they call seasonality. So the tiger, the rabbit, and the dragon are all part of the spring season. So this this book also includes the dragon in addition to all these. So for a combined stem of wood, the combination creates wood. For the fire, it's going to also add the goat, because the horse, and the goat are the summer season. And it's not going to add anything to the earth, and it's not going to add anything to the metal either, because the monkey, rooster, and dog are part of the autumn, but the dog is already included because it is a growth. It is the production of the metal. And then for the water, you also add ox, because the ox is part of the pig, rat, ox winter season, which is the water. The winter is strong in water. So many schools will add these three. Now, there may be schools that don't look at the uh, the the growth, the producing one, but they seem to be rarer. And actually, I think a lot of schools, there are some schools that only look at the seasonal and don't even look at the production. So, but they're also not super common. So again, these extra months in red come from the idea of seasonality. So let's look at this. Unfortunately, I didn't write down the date and time, and I'm not going to go through this again and figure it out, but this is a real date and time. I just don't remember what it is. But we have these two guys. They're going to create wood, or potentially create wood. Now, rule number two, it passes rule number one. They're side by side. Rule number two says that um, this is a combination. If we look at that, who's stronger? Well, we have water here. We also have water here. And we have water here. So the water has, well, it has decent roots. It's not super strong, but it has good roots in its own pillar. If we look at fire, in here, there isn't another fire element at all. So it's very, very clear that the fire is the weak one. And if you remember, there's the argument of who wins. Well, it said that I mean, the standard charts say that the yang wood goes away. But in this case, it's not going to be the yang wood. If something goes away, it's going to be the yin fire because it has no support whatsoever in this chart. So we have to go on to at least rule number 3. There'll be a few more rules, but let's at least go this far. Does this main chi in the month branch support the combination of wood? Well, metal chops wood, so it doesn't. Now we do have water here, and there might be some schools that say it still qualifies because you've got at least some water here. But it is the weaker, I mean, the main chi is the stronger one. This is pretty weak. I still say this doesn't combine. And I checked this date with the Chinese Metasoft site, and it doesn't say there's a combination either. I think, I mean, I've gone through a lot of different dates and stuff. I actually think that the Chinese Metasoft site is very, very close to the rules I'm covering right here. So these may be more standard rules. So let's basically do the same thing, but this time we're going to flip these two. And so, of course, we are going to have a different set of dates. And this, I actually remembered to record the dates. And so here, rule number 1, they're side by side, we got that. Rule number 2, if we look at this, well, this is supported here. It also supported here and here and here. So there's a lot of support for the water. Do we have any support for the fire? Nope, not a 1. Well, perhaps we do. We do have wood. Wood does support, or let's say it creates fire, but that's not rooting. You have to have the same element of either polarity to root it. So this is completely unrooted. The month has no rooting whatsoever. So it's kind of free floating. Now, if you want to understand rooting better, I do have a video that just talks about rooting and the levels of rooting. The strongest rooting, of course, is in the main chi of that same pillar, which I'll talk about and show you all the different possibilities later. But rule number 2 says, okay, that if one is going to be combined away or transformed, it will be, again, the yang fire. Now, rule number 3, we have wood. The main chi is water. Water produces wood. Most of them would say that, yes, this is at least a combination. Whether or not it transforms, we have to consider that later. It may or may not. It will depend on the school. And I don't know the rules well enough to tell you whether or not this school particularly says this. Because this is a bit of a gray thing, I would say if I had to be pressed, I would say it would transform because this guy is so weak. And there should be no reason why it can't, but maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Depends on the school. So if we instead look at this, we have this transforms to wood. So I'm giving you another example. Now this one, all I've done is change the animal sign. Again, this does transform, but this clashes this. I don't think it does, but there may be some schools that say yes. I'm not going to guarantee this either way. It's just too hard to tell. So we're going to continue with the rules. So we just covered that. Those first 3 steps are the first 3 steps you have to look at for sure. Now we're going to talk about whether or not something can be removed, that is combined away or transformed. And only a weak heaven stem can be. Now, if a heaven stem has strong rooting, it simply can't be removed or transformed. It doesn't mean it can't be combined. But if both stems are strong, then nothing happens to the chart. It doesn't change at all. There's no combination at all. It is said that because these two want to combine, but they're too strong to combine, they may be, let's say, distracted by each other, maybe have some weakness of that particular level because, or that particular, each one of those elements, because it wants to combine, but it's like fighting and it's not able to give you the energy because it's fighting with each other. That is the general idea I get from uh, these websites. Now, the strongest rooting comes from an identical or opposite polarity of the same element that's in the heaven stem in the main chi of the hidden stem. That is the very strongest possible one. If it's in the sub chi of the same pillar, it's it's less strong. So if you had one that is in the main chi and one that's in the sub chi, it's the one in the sub chi that would be possibly combined away. Whether or not it's too strong to be combined away will depend on the school. And I don't know all the schools out there, so I can't tell you exactly where that cutoff is. Now, the lower levels of rooting might mean that the heaven stem can combine or transform. Again, it depends on the school. And unfortunately, there aren't hard and fast rules. Uh, And if you really want to do this, you really have to find a school and basically stick with it. Uh, you might find that it's not 100% correct, but I'm sure that none of the schools are 100% correct because there may be subtle things. And remember, the feng shui, I mean, not the feng shui, your batsa is only 1/3 of who you are. 2/3 comes from everything else, from the environment you grew up in, the environment you're living in, and uh, and also um, basically your upbringing. You know, who your parents were, what were their values. All that is actually stronger than your batsa. So uh, this isn't 100% guarantee. Now, if both stems involved in a potential combination have strong roots, that is, in the main chi, it's the same element, we don't care about the polarity, as the heaven stem, they will not combine at all. They will not transform. They simply are too strong to change. And sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not. Again, it depends on the whole chart and what the potential transformation element would be. Would it be good or bad for the chart? Well, that will depend on the strength of the day master. This is not simple. It is ugly complicated. So here are the pillars with the strongest roots. So we have water here, same thing here. Here we have wood. Here we have fire. Here we have the earth and the other earth. And of course, uh, you're not going to have a yin earth tiger. I mean, not tiger, yin earth dragon, because a dragon is yang. So these are just the stems possible. And then here are the metal. So this is all you have as a choice. Uh, these stems, these particular pillars will never transform. They're too strong. They might force another pillar to transform, but they themselves never will. So let's take another look at this. Rules 1 through 4 does allow this to transform. We have wood here. This is the combination. We have wood right here. No reason why these two can't transform. So now what we have to look at is which one of these are stronger. Now, the Chinese Metasoft site states this as a real combination, or well, actually, they have one row in their description, and this you do have to have a subscription to see all of this. Uh, it will add a row that says transformation, if a transformation is possible. If you have no transformation possible, you won't see that row because it'll be blank. So it gets added if it's there. And it says this one is real. Now, it certainly meets all 1 through 3. I mean, definitely. And 1 through 4, we have to look at this. So we have to say, okay, do we have fire? Do we have any fire here? Well, we have a fire here, so there is some. Do we have water? Well, we have water here, we have water here, and we have water here. So water does seem more prevalent, but let's get into more detail. Within each branch, these are equally weak or equally strong, but again, we still have to look at the entire chart. So here, the heaven stems produce the main chi of the hidden stems in both cases, goes the same direction, and each one has an element that it controls and an element that controls it. This is the element it controls, this is the element that controls it. So these are equal. There's no difference between these two. So now we have to look at, okay, is there anything more that can tell us? Well, when we look at the rooting, the fire rooting only has one. Now, even though these are not in the exact stem, but we have 3 rootings, and for the water, these 2 are stronger, but this is still yet a little more rooting. So we know if one is going to transform, it's going to be the fire because it is weaker, not by much. Now, it is also possible that they could both transform. Again, that will depend on the school. And if you wanted to know the exact rules, apparently you have to pay to actually learn the exact rules from the particular master. So I don't know exactly where the division is for the different schools. So this could be the transform chart where they both change, they both get transformed. So by the standard method, the standard rules, the water is the one that gets transformed. And so this would be from the standard table uh, that you would find in the Chinese sites, not in the English sites. And but if we go with the whole idea, you have to look at the whole chart. This is the one that is more likely to happen. But again, since they're both relatively weak, it could be both. That's the first thing I showed you. So again, it depends on the school. I don't know which school does what, but I would not be surprised if all 3 of these are there. Although that middle one is probably the one least likely to happen. So there is another one, and this may not be uniform in all schools. Uh, it says that if there's a heaven stem that controls one of the pair of the combination, that, so I'll show you examples to be a little clearer about this, but it will destroy the ability for that pair to combine. And this comes from the Batsa Talk. This is another website. So like I told you, I would tell you when I'm using something else, but this does make some sense. Now, the controlling cycle is basically in 2 parts. It's the standard controlling cycle that we've learned for feng shui and all this stuff, but here it's divided into 2 because only the yang stems will control the yang stems, and the yin stems control the yin stems. So we have yin wood controls yin earth controls yin water controls yin fire controls yin metal, and yin metal controls yin wood. So it's a circle thing. And then you have the same thing in the, I'm sorry, these are yang. These are all yang. So just forget I said yin. It's all yang. Now, there is one thing that isn't 100% clear, but it may mean that you need to have the controlling element next to the element it's trying to control. And this does seem to be the rule that the Chinese Metasoft site uses. And I'll show you in a second. Now, This website, the Batsa Talk, has, let's say, more logical rules when it's talking about which one wins. And it's basically the controlling cycle, and they don't care about polarity because in the combinations you're going to have a yin and a yang. So it says that wood wins over earth because wood controls earth. Metal wins over wood because metal controls wood, and so forth. Fire wins over metal because fire controls metal, and so forth. At least this makes more sense. Now, this doesn't agree with the standard rules that are out there, but like I said, those standard rules don't make any logical sense. But in either case, this really doesn't matter. As I've shown you already, you have to look at the entire chart. So this rule of who wins is actually quite irrelevant. And unfortunately, that just means it's a tougher job. It would be nicer if one of these rules were correct, but apparently they're not. So, so I've got this table here, and if you have this combination of yang wood and yin earth, which is creating yang earth, if next to the wood stem you have the yang metal stem, then this combination won't occur. That's what it means. Now, if you have yin wood next to the yin earth, then also it won't occur. Now, the day master there are some schools that really only care about what the day master is doing. And they don't want the day master to control the output element. That is the created element. But this also assumes that the day master is not part of the combination. That is an important thing to know. This has to be basically in the year and the month, whether or not the combination can occur. And so if we're talking about this would be, let's say this is the year, this is the month, and it creates the yin earth. But if your day master is yin wood, it's going to destroy the yin earth. The yang wood is going to destroy the yang earth. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble today with that. Anyway, this is how you would use this table. So I don't know how useful it is. It's certainly something to look at. And again, some schools are only concerned about the day master. Other schools would say, as long as this happens, and we're usually talking about these two stems, then we want to be aware of what's right next to either one of these stems. And I'll show you some examples. It'll hopefully become clearer. Now, the destroying stem, again, may have to be an adjacent pillar to the stem being destroyed, or that is well, it will become clearer when we do some examples. So here's an example. Now here, the yin wood controls the yin earth, so they're right beside each other. But this is a combination, yang wood and yin earth. It should create yang earth. But the Chinese medicine site says this does not combine. Although we have fire here, fire produces earth, we have all the other requirements for this to actually be a combination. But by that rule, that this is controlling this, and it happens to be the day master too, it shouldn't happen. Now, if these two were somehow switched, which may not correspond to real dates, this might not happen. And we'll see that in a second. But I want to use charts that are real. Because using charts that aren't, I can't really check them with the Chinese Metasoft site. So that's one reason why I use actual dates. So if we do this instead, this yang metal controls yang earth, but they're not adjacent. Now, what the Chinese Metasoft site says, this is a likely combo. That is, this yin earth and the yang wood creating yang earth. This is likely. And I think when they say likely, they mean that it depends on the school. If they say real, it means that basically all schools agree on this. And if it says, there's one more step, and I'll show you near the end, there's even a stronger statement than either likely or real. Now, this is one extra rule, and I've decided not to give it the number 6 because I'm not sure how many follow this, although I would say it makes sense that this could happen. But it says if the month does not support the created element, that is, it's not the same element or the element that produces the created element, but there is a directional or 3-harmony combination in the branches that create a supporting element, then the stem combination can occur. To me, this is quite straightforward, but I think you're probably going to need some examples, and I have some. Now, this appears to be the only condition where a directional or 3-harmony branch combination can create a transformation. However, it's not a transformation that is created in the branches. It's created in the heaven stems. The only thing that this gives you is when you have a transformation between two heaven stems, but the month is wrong. This can give you that. It replaces the month, basically. It replaces the main chi, mostly, of the month to create a transformation. So this is what that 3-harmony or the directional combination can give, just that element. This element is only a transformation between the two heaven stems. The other stems in the branches don't have any effect. They don't change, they don't do anything because they're not part of the combination. They're just providing the proper element to allow the combination to occur. So here's an example. This combination here creates wood. Now, when we look at the whole thing, we have a very strong rooting here. So this one, absolutely, the Daymaster cannot combine. This one is less strong. So if there's going to be something that transforms, it would be this one. Now, I don't know that it does, but at least if we're talking about the two, this is the weak one, possibly could transform. Now, the Chinese Metasoft site says this is a real transformation. And if we look here, we have the pig, the goat, and the rabbit. That creates wood. This is the wood 3-harmony combination. This combination is wood. This is wood. It's supporting it. Now, it took me a while to find a date. This wasn't easy to find, but I wanted some real numbers so that you can check this with whatever software you want to use. Now, again, this is the only time a directional 3-harmony branch combo can allow a transformation to occur. And we have the pig and the rabbit, which are part of the 3-harmony, but not part of the heaven stems. Nothing happens to these guys. The only thing that might transform is this one. The year and the hour will not transform because they aren't part of the combination. But this combination, the 3-harmony combinations, is giving the wood because the month has wood here, but this is not enough. This is the transformation that it's really the main chi you have to look at. So this is not, especially from the iFeng website, this will not transform if we didn't have these two extra ones to give the wood. So if anything is going to happen, if a transformation will happen, it will be here. This will not transform. So because it's got too strong a rooting. And again, it says it's real. So it probably does transform. Now, I'm going to give you some more examples. I think this will help. So we have, again, a combination that's going to create yang earth. And we have fire, which creates earth. So we have this all kind of working together. And the Chinese website says this is a likely transformation. Now, we have the we have metal here. It does chop the wood, but it's not adjacent and it's not in the same polarity. So there shouldn't be a problem here. Now, why it says likely is a little bit more of a mystery. Perhaps it is because we don't have very strong, I mean, this one won't transform because we have a very strong rooting. This one might. And maybe the fact that it has this earth and has earth here and has earth here, this may make up for not having earth in the main chi. So this may be one of those conditions where this earth is also a little too strong to transform. So that's why it may happen, it may not. It depends on the school. And that's what I'm interpreting likely to mean. Because otherwise, I would say that, yeah, this one should transform. At least this is the one that's going to transform of the two, because this one absolutely cannot. But, you know, this is, I will never do Batsa. This is too much for me. And I'm not going to pay to learn from a master about this because I don't have enough interest in doing Batsa. Now, this would be the transformational chart. And if it does transform. Now, it might combine without transforming. Again, it depends on the school and some very subtle things on whether or not this would transform. And I just don't know enough. Now, here's another one. And this one, now remember, transformation of the day master is the most important transformation possible because this will change your general personality. These other ones where I show other pillars transforming, well, they affect part of your life, but they don't change your personality. So they're not as important. And I think there's a lot of ones out there that really only care whether or not your daymaster gets transformed. But here's an example, and I've got a real date here for you. This combo can create, again, yang, earth. Now we do have, this earth has a rooting, this wood has a rooting at the same level. They're equally rooted, but if we look at the chart as a whole, we have 2 wood, and this one's quite far away, but we have 4 earth. So the earth is going to win this one. There's a lot more support for the earth than we have for the wood. So this is going to follow the standard rule. Whether or not the standard rule is right is a whole nother question, but if one's going to be transformed, it's going to be the daymaster. So having looked at the strength, we know it would be just the daymaster that can transform. And daymasters can't be combined away. Now again, the difference between combined away and transform is a little vague. But if one is going to transform, it's going to be the daymaster. Now, we also have to look. This is Earth. Well, we have in the month stem, we have Yang Earth. Definitely the transformation is possible. So we will assume that it does. And this would be the transform chart where the daymaster is changed from Yang wood to Yang earth. Now, the Chinese Metasoft site lists this as a transformational earth structure. So this is that third one, that third category. And it's going to be, if it's that strong, it'll be transformational, one of the 5 elements structure. that means that the Daymaster transforms. And this does seem to be, at least with the Chinese Metasoft site, a very um, definitive statement. They're pretty sure about this, that in all of the schools, they would say this Daymaster transforms because they're not wishy-washy about it. They're just strictly saying this is a transformational earth structure. Now, this would mean that the person will change their personality, because the difference between a person with a wood Daymaster, a Yang wood Daymaster, and a person with a Yang earth Daymaster is significantly different. Now, what the combination or transformation means to your chart will depend on the relationship between the Daymaster and the created element. And so let's just look at this. This is I think this is the transformation chart we just looked at. So this is the original chart. Now here, if you look, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 IWs in this chart. This chart has a very high level of IW. And if you were to stick this date and time into the Joey Yap's thing, it says that the wealth is at 100%. So this person in general would be very obsessed, I guess you could say, with money. They would be using their knowledge and the education they get to earn the money. This is how they would approach it if this was not a transformational chart. So, but they could have trouble with people simply because this IW means, you're very innovative. You can be a mover and a shaker, but you're going to be, let's say, outside the standard things. You tend to think outside of the box, really shake up things. A lot of people may resent you for that. So you can have problems because of that, because uh, people might even be jealous that you came up with something that they didn't. So that's a possibility. However, remember, this is a transformational earth structure. So it should transform. So what it transforms to, it would be, of course, the the Yang earth. Now let's look. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 friends, and this would even be a sixth one because sometimes they count this also. So you always have some friend level in your chart. Now, high levels of friend, uh, when they get negative, they can be quite clingy in relationships. They can be very, very good friends, though. So it depends on their life circumstances, which way they go. But they can also have problems. Now, this person is going to put a lot of emphasis on their friendships, and they're going to feel really bad, usually about themselves, but not always, if a friend decides to break off a relationship. It might turn into hate for that friend, or former friend, I should say, but it there tends to be a big shift if somebody tries to break off a relationship, and it could make this individual here, depressed, or it could make them angry, uh, and also if this is the way it works, they tend to be um, they tend to worry about their relationships a lot if they have any kind of rejection, because friends are the most important thing in their life. Now, this is a very different person. The a Yang wood Daymaster, they tend to learn a lot because it's a growth um, animal or a growth pillar, uh, and they tend to be uh, they tend to be strong. They like to help people, but one of their biggest focus is learning things, whereas a Yang Earth Daymaster is more focused on stability, I mean, this represents a mountain. They don't like to change. Doesn't mean they can't. It's just that they have to be convinced that their viewpoint is somehow not fair or not right before they change. So they do tend to cling to whatever belief system they have from when they're young. So this is really, truly a very different type of person. And the Chinese Metasoft site says this is a transformational chart. This would be the actual chart. Now, this is no longer a valid date. In fact, I don't think this exists as a actual date. So this you would either have to do by hand, or there is another place, the batsacalculator.com website might be able to help you with this. But you do have to have a subscription, which I do not have. Now, the it's kind of a bummer, but the Chinese Metasoft site uh, with a subscription will tell you when a transformation is possible. However, it doesn't help you understand what that transformation does to your chart and what it means to you. It just tells you whether or not it's possible. The Batsa Calculator website with a subscription allows you to apply those transformations. At least that's what I understand. Uh, but it doesn't seem to tell you whether or not you have a transformation possible. It might with with a subscription, but I've never had a subscription here. I had considered doing it for this, but it's probably going to take me more than a month to get this all done. And I don't know how long I'm going to be doing this. And so I don't want to do a monthly subscription because that's more expensive. And a year subscription is a little bit more than my business has to spare. So maybe somebody out there has this subscription. We can you can tell me about how the Batsa calculator actually works if you do. Now, both of these sites have a decently priced, roughly 10 US dollars each for a month subscription. So this, if you want to do this for yourself and your family and your friends, 1 month should be enough. But if you're trying to do this for, you know, who knows how many months I'm going to be doing this to get everything done, then you're talking about a year, and then that gets kind of expensive. Uh, but since I'm never going to be doing BATSA uh, analysis for people, I don't really need the BATSA calculator site, especially because my chart has nothing, has no possible transformations, and neither does my husband's. So, you know, we're clear of any issues that come from this. So that's it. I'd like to thank you for watching. Now, again, if you have some questions, and I'm sure there will be some, please watch this at least a second time. Maybe your questions will be answered because I do anticipate a lot of questions from this, but I would like you to have checked what I've already said. Now, if you do find this information useful, I'd love to have $1 or two donated through my coffee store. And my next goal after, once I collect enough, if I ever do, I will take Ziwei Doshu and do the same thing I'm doing with Feng Shui. I'll do that with Ziwei Doshu. I think just looking at Ziwei Doshu, it seems to be a little bit more straightforward. But I do understand it is nearly as complex. But the Ziwei Doshu classes are much more expensive than Batsa classes. And the Batsa class I took, I learned almost nothing from in the details. I had to go to the Chinese language websites. But it did help me see a general overview. So I'm not bummed that I took it. But yeah, it really was a waste of money. But it's already spent.